Welcome to the Church Explained podcast, a conversation to grow your leadership and build your church. Today we're doing things a little bit different. We're going to do a quick fire session today.
Quick fire, come on, Dave.
Yeah, and so we're going to look at some of the highlights really from the podcast that we've been running for the last number of months.
Yeah.
We're going to pick out some of the things in there, but we can't do all of it today, can we, Nathan?
No.
So we're going to pick out a few. But let's first of all introduce ourselves for those who've forgotten who we are.
So I'm Nathan, and it's been a journey.
Yeah.
This Church Explained podcast, it's been great.
Yeah.
And so it's great to be together again, and just highlighting some of our highlights.
Yeah.
That we couldn't pick them all.
No, so if you have been a guest on the podcast and we don't pick yours, please don't fall out with us.
Yeah, we love you, really.
We love you, and maybe if you'd have paid us more, we'd have mentioned you.
There we go.
Okay.
We'll expect those gifts in the post.
Yeah, send them quickly. Yeah, so hey, let's pick up on a couple of your favourites.
Yeah.
What's been your highlight, and we'll just discuss around those and then see where we go.
Well, before we start, I was just thinking about this as I was thinking about, like, we were planning this podcast episode, and I was thinking what have been some of my highlights. And I know lots of people like myself will listen to the podcast maybe when they're in the car, when they're out running at the gym, doing things, and it's great to do that. But the ones that I've picked out have been some of the ones that I've listened back to, and I've heard something and I've gone, oh, I didn't hear that when we was recording it.
Yeah.
And so my encouragement to people would be, if something speaks to you, listen back to it. Maybe you're listening in the gym or the car or on a run or wherever, and something speaks to you, listen back and pick that thing up, because I think it'd be beneficial. And that's one of the things that has been for me. So the first one I want to pick is the one we did with a good friend of ours, Steve Morstan.
Yeah.
Why a senior pastor or a leader needs a coach. And
fantastic.
Just really that whole idea of having a coach. And it was when Steve talked about having a coach in multiple areas.
Yeah. So
it wasn't that there's the one person that kind of becomes the coach for your whole life, or you just have a coach for a certain part of your life. It was when he talked about how he'd got a coach, someone who he was talking to around his finances, around church, around ministry, around leadership. He'd got many different coaches, and even different coaches in different seasons of his life.
Yeah. That
really spoke to me and was something that I've begun to pick up on, begun to lean into wisdom from others, that I had to go back and listen back over and go, okay, so how did he frame that? And I think that was just a real key insight for myself.
And I like some of the stuff he said in there around about the fact of how do you get a coach?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know how do I find a coach or who should be the coach. So there's lots of different ways you can approach that, isn't there, really? Yeah. And on an earlier episode, I think we had someone else talking about coaching, didn't we? Around coaching as a discipleship model.
Yeah.
So there's lots of stuff around how do you get a coach. In one sense, coaching, I think we discussed in that episode, is a little bit different than mentoring.
Yep.
They do overlap a little bit.
Yep.
And a good definition I've heard about coaching is that coaching is drawing out.
Yep.
And that mentoring is adding in. Now, they do overlap a bit, but actually, just to have that distinction in your mind. So if you're looking for a coach, I mean, obviously, you can contact us. We can help with that. Not a problem. Something we do here.
Yeah.
But I think it's the thing that really stuck out with me on that coaching was the fact that lots and lots of leaders don't actually have a coach.
Yeah, that was a key.
That's a big thing, isn't it?
And when I was talking about having a coach over multiple areas, it was kind of like something just dropped in me that I don't even have. Maybe I don't even have one coach. Never mind, here's Steve saying I've got multiple coaches in multiple areas. I talked about finances and leadership, preaching, all of this, and even willing to just send out messages. Yeah, I think he mentioned in that podcast he sent out a message to Jeff Lucas.
Yeah, we still don't know if he's heard back.
Hey, we'll make contact with Steve. Did you hear back from Jeff?
Yeah, well, we'll find out. We'll put that in the show notes if he's heard back. If he hasn't, he needs to try a bit harder. Come on, Steve, we're looking at you.
But it was just the willingness to say, hey, I love your style of preaching. will you just take a listen and share some thoughts?
And of course, Steve is like, he's a well-experienced leader in his own right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He could sit back and say, well, I don't really need a coach, or I'm okay, I've learned a lot, I can read a book. But there's something about the input of somebody beside you, isn't there? Somebody asking you the right questions, drawing out the right stuff from you, and helping you to think differently.
Yeah.
That makes a difference. So it's a great episode, that one.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And he talked about, didn't he, around this idea of where the original idea of the coach came from. It was to do with wasn't it the train he was talking about? So you'd be, coach would be get you from A to B. That was the idea
exactly.
of the coach
Train.
Getting you somewhere. And I think that's true.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was a good one for you. Anything else from that episode?
No, I've listened to that a couple of times back again, just to remind myself, refresh myself again.
Yeah, so the takeaway is get a coach. Yeah. That's the big thing, isn't it, really?
That was the big takeaway. Yeah.
So I'm going to come back to Steve in a moment, because that was one of my highlights as well. Steve, you've paid us a lot of money, mate. But before I get that, one of the other ones that really, I think, is very, very powerful, and especially in this season, is one that your dad did, the lead pastor here at Icon Church, Paul Benger, where he talked about this idea that every leader has their leavers. Yeah. And for me, that was powerful in a sense, as a reminder that actually people will leave. Yeah. And he talked around this idea, like, don't be surprised, people left Jesus. Yeah. If they left Jesus, well, there's news crying about it. People will leave you in ministry. And sometimes they're the people who we feel are the closest to us. Yeah. People we've done journey with, like you think of Jesus and the example there. Yeah. Even people like Judas was with him for 3 years, eating at the table, doing all the stuff. But in the end, he was nowhere to be seen, was he really? No, yeah. So there's something powerful in there. But what I liked about that, Nathan, and maybe you can chip in as well, is the idea of... It was this idea of the fact of how we want to respond, and how we should respond. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So how we want to respond, we want to get angry. Yeah. We want to maybe get that person by the scruff of the neck. Yeah. That's real leadership.
We can be honest here. We can be honest. Okay. Yeah.
Since it's a short podcast, we'll do it quickly. But you may feel like that sometimes, don't you? You know what I mean? You've maybe had that conversation on a Sunday. Somebody said to you, they haven't even done it right. They're just saying, I'm leaving. Like a quick one-liner as you're going around chatting with people on a Sunday. They're telling you they're leaving, no contacts, no information. And before they know it, they've told the whole church that they've gone. Or they put it on social media. And it's how you want to respond, but actually how we should respond.
Yeah. I think that was so powerful in the fact of that we have a choice on how we respond to these situations. And like you said, they can come out of the blue. Yeah. They can come from nowhere. Yeah. Someone could even say, "Oh, we've been thinking about this for months," and you're like, "So why did you not talk to me?"
Yeah, exactly.
That kind of aspect. But that whole area of, I think, is so powerful for us as leaders in choosing how we respond. Yeah. Because there are some things that we can't control. We can't control, I think this was powerful. We can't control what others do or, the way others think or what they're going to do, but we can control our response. Yeah. And I just think that we, that whole episode just, reiterated again for myself, but also for leaders, that there are some people who are going to leave. Yeah. And that's going to happen. Yeah. And to not be so shocked by that. Yeah. But also to know, actually, I can respond in the right way.
And Paul had pointed out some key things. I'm just going to read it straight from the show notes, actually. Right. So if you've never looked on the website, there's show notes there for every podcast we do. Yeah. So he pointed out some of these things. First of all, he says, this is how we should respond. Trust in the promises of God. Yeah. In other words, Jesus is going to build this church. Yep. Whatever happens, Jesus is still going to build his church. Yep. He said this, measure your ministry on those who are with you and not on those who have gone.
Very good.
And that's good, isn't it? That helps. It's comforting, I think, for leaders. Yeah. He said this we must let people go with grace. Because sometimes we want to fight them, don't we?
Yeah, we do.
I don't mean like go into the car park, although you may feel that way. But please don't do that, leader. Don't go into the car park. Actually, where I'm from in Belfast, I heard lots of stories of churches and church leaders who would go into the car park after a Sunday night. Anyway, it's a different culture there. But let people go with grace, because that's important, isn't it, really? And the leader must forgive as well. Because if we're not careful, we can let stuff build up in our spirits. And then we treat other people in a wrong way.
And the Bible talks about unforgiveness a whole load, and it being a barrier for us as leaders, but also as people who follow Jesus. And so I think that's a big one.
And thinking of this one, I really like, because it helps us to focus on the future, not just the fact they've gone. Paul had said this: we must look for the next, for the new, and for the upgrade. In other words, I think when someone goes, God knows they're going to go.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody new who's going to come in through the door. And those are the people we should be thinking of, not just those who are about to come in through the door, but those who are with us. Because I think that makes a big difference. So that was a great podcast, that one.
It was. And something Paul's been talking about recently has been, there are many people in this city. I think it's a Bible verse. There are many people in this city, and that God has many people in our cities, our towns, wherever we are, that are for us. And so that whole next new upgrade is a part of that conversation.
So come on, what else? What I'm
gonna chuck three into one.
Oh wow!
Just because I think they're very similar.
Okay.
So I'm gonna big up myself in the whole youth ministry that builds the church.
You do that.
We had Jane on kids ministry that builds the church, and then we also had Nathan Blood on a whole creative department that builds the church. And the big takeaway for me is that sometimes we can create silos in the church. So the youth ministry is off doing their thing, the kids are off doing their thing, and sometimes in some churches the worship team or the creative team are off doing their thing. And it was just the idea of unity and getting around one vision as a church, so that actually the kids ministry are bought into building the church. The youth ministry is bought into building the church and building the church that we're called to build. The creative department is called to build a church. And it was just this idea that I think came out in all of these three podcasts, that there's not three separate visions.
That's what I remember.
It's one vision.
Yeah.
And so we're all working towards that one vision in our own departments, in our own ministries. You know, like in youth, that has to, fit a youth context. In kids, that has to fit a kids context. In a creative department, we're going to do that through worship and creative and how that happens. But it's this one vision that we're united around. And I don't know, but I think for some churches and for some leaders, we may have silos going off in different departments. And the big thing and the big takeaway for me was start to rally those people around the one vision. And here's what we're about as a church.
And I guess, like, just thinking of those three areas, they're all crucial, aren't they, really, for growing the church. So in other words, sometimes leaders will say, well, we'll put all our efforts into youth, or we'll put all our efforts into kids. We're going to be the church who does everything about kids. But actually, it's about having that more holistic approach, isn't it? We need kids, we need creative, we need youth. Those are the three of the big components that help build church, especially on a Sunday. Now, we know church is bigger than that. We get that, but actually, from a Sunday point of view, like, we want to make sure that we're investing in those three areas, don't we? Really? So that was a good one. I like it, and you guys do a great job with the youth. The team here are doing an amazing job. I'll give a big shout out to the guys at Icon Church and all the youth stuff. I bring my boy here. He's 12 years of age, and I drive an hour to get him here every Friday. You know what I mean? And I do that. Why? Because actually, it's worth coming to. Do you know what I mean? And so there's something about that. If you're willing to put in that effort to drive to get your kid here, it sends something about the youth ministry. Isn't it, really?
Definitely.
So fantastic.
Big props to you, Dave, as well, for driving an hour.
Thank you, mate. I've had to claim all my expenses for the last 5 years. No, I'm just joking. Gavin, our treasurer, is panicking in the background now.
He is. He's listening to this going, no.
No, it's your personal thing. Anyway, so listen, we're going to quickly round up the last one here. And again, we're back to Steve Mostyn. So, Steve, a big shout out to you. One of the things I really liked was when we'd done the podcast around how do we respond to new people coming into the church? And I guess, like, in this season, and we want to say this season because we want to be real, this is going to go out probably very, very soon. Yeah. And we want to say, like, it is a different season we're in right across the world as people new are coming into the church and some people have not returned. Yeah. And he had pointed out 3 things that he said is really important as we think about new people. Now, can you remember those?
No, you're going to remind me.
Right. The first one is this: as we think of those new people coming in, celebration, assimilation, and activation. Yeah. They're great words, aren't they, for thinking about. So he talked about this idea, we need to celebrate new people, like put that in the fabric of everything we do, from the car park, as people are coming into the car park, how are we treating them? How do they feel? Celebrating them as they come through the door, celebrating them from the front as well. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that's crucial. And so it's that idea of celebration, assimilation, and activation. Yeah.
I mean, the whole celebration thing, we just had a leaders' day actually with our leaders here at Icon Church. And one of the things that was said, we had like a roundtable discussion, and one of the things that was said on our roundtable discussion was, I love the way we celebrate new people. Yeah. And that we don't just do it once in a service, but it happens multiple times. Yeah. That we welcome them. And we don't use language, I think this is a biggie, of us and them. No. But it's very much, it's great to be together today. Yeah. And if you're new here, we want to celebrate you. And we get the whole church to clap. Yeah, to celebrate those people who are with us, in our services for the first time on that weekend. And, like, in our world today, I think that's a big win for us because not lots of people get celebrated. No. And I think what a great starting point that we can communicate as a church and help people rethink church as well. It's the fact of, actually, these people are for me. Yeah. They want the best for me. They're not judging me. They're not judging my lifestyle. They're not judging what's gone on. No, they're celebrating me and are for me. And I think, I just think that's a great starting point that Steve highlighted for us.
Yeah, it was a great one. And so just to pick out a little bit there, because we have had that Leaders' Day just last week. And we were focusing on this idea of principles over practices. Yeah. And I think we'll do a podcast now very soon. We'll get Paul in and we'll talk around that, principles over practices. But the reason I say that is because I do remember really pushing Steve on this idea of, having a system. And I remember clearly he said, look, you can have the best system in the world, but if you don't love people, it's just a waste of space. Yeah, and I think that's true. And a lot of churches, I think, pre-lockdown and pre-COVID, they were focused on system. How do we create the best system? And you need systems, don't you? Yeah. But like a system without a heart or without an engine, definitely, it's just a no-goer. And that was a big thing. It really spoke to me. Out of all the stuff he said about, the things we can do, how do we welcome them, be sure we connect with them. It was that personal heart expression. The leaders really love those people coming through the doors.
And that's what we'll probably talk about on the principles over practices, because I think the practices can shift and change and be flexible. But the principle, the why, is why we do this, because we love people.
Why we celebrate
people, because we want them to know they're loved, they're cared for, they're welcome here. This is home for them. It's reminding ourselves of the why. And I think even, just for myself, we've been talking about that principles over practices, but even the Leaders' Day that we had where we talked around this whole idea of welcoming people into church, it was just a reminder again, here's why we do it. Yeah. It's not to, fill a spreadsheet with numbers and people's names. No, this is all about loving people and helping them to find Jesus for us as Icon Church.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They were some of our highlights, I suppose.
Yes, they were.
There's lots of others.
Oh, loads.
And hey, we would just encourage people to go and check out all the different podcasts that we've done. This is a quick fire one we've said today, and I think we've been pretty quick, haven't we?
Yeah, pretty quick for us. Yes, definitely.
Pretty quick for us. What people don't realise is they're normally 3 hours long, and we cut them. No, we don't really. We don't really. No. Come on, Nathan, wrap up for us today.
So it's been great to be together again, and you can access all of the podcasts, the ones that we've talked about today, but even more incredible podcasts that we've had with some incredible guests, wherever you consume your podcasts. And we'd love to have your feedback. So please rate, review, subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts. You can find show notes at icon.church/open, and you'll be able to get those show notes. Plus also, if you sign up there, then we've got some free resources that will help you as a church. But it's been great to be together, Dave, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Church Explained podcast.